The marketplace of Zephyra Prime stretched as far as the eye could see, bustling with sentient beings from dozens of star systems. Towering crystalline arches shimmered in the planet's soft orange light, casting spectral hues across the bazaar. The air was thick with exotic scents, unfamiliar and overwhelming, mingled with the faint hum of repulsor lift platforms carrying goods and slaves alike. Kale stood among the latter, his wrists bound by sleek, metallic restraints that hummed faintly with suppressive energy. He was stripped of everything that once made him human, his clothes replaced by a plain, featureless tunic, his pride buried under weeks of captivity. His brown hair was matted, his body marked with bruises that told the story of his capture by the Ivran raiders. Around him, alien buyers inspected the wares with a detached air, their features ranging from grotesque to eerily beautiful. Kale caught snippets of conversation in 100 languages, only some of which the translation implant in his neck could process. "A rare find," boomed the voice of the auctioneer, a towering insectoid creature whose mandibles clicked as it spoke. "Human male, unaltered, physically fit, ideal for labor or pleasure." Kale's stomach turned as the words washed over him, but he kept his face neutral. Showing weakness only made the bidding more spirited. He had learned that lesson when one of his fellow captives had been sold days earlier, their screams drowned out by the auctioneer's booming proclamations. Starting bid, 10,000 credits. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Kale scanned the faces, or what passed for faces, of the bidders. Most seemed disinterested, their attention on rarer or more exotic captives. But one figure at the edge of the crowd caught his eye. She stood taller than any being around her, her presence commanding without effort. The alien woman's appearance was both regal and otherworldly. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, flowing with subtle patterns that seemed to shift with her mood. Her eyes glowed faintly, twin orbs of pale violet that seemed to pierce through Kale's facade. She wore a gown made of flowing, iridescent material that clung to her slender frame and glittered like starlight. She was a queen, though Kale didn't know her name or species, her bearing made it unmistakable. She raised a single, delicate hand, her elongated fingers adorned with rings that sparkled with embedded crystals. 50,000 credits, she said, her voice low and resonant, carrying effortlessly over the crowd. The auctioneer's mandibles clicked in delight. A bold bid. "Do we have a challenger?" Silence followed, broken only by the faint hum of distant repulsor lifts. The queen's gaze remained fixed on Kale, unblinking, as if daring anyone else to challenge her claim. No one did. "Sold," the auctioneer declared, slamming a gavel-like appendage against the podium. Kale's journey from the marketplace to the queen's domain was swift and silent. He was escorted by 2 guards, hulking brutes with obsidian armor and stoic expressions. They led him aboard a sleek, crescent-shaped ship that glided silently into the atmosphere. Kale tried to keep his thoughts in check, but questions swirled in his mind. Why had she paid so much for him? What would she do with him? The ship descended onto the surface of a sprawling palace, a structure that seemed to blend seamlessly with the surrounding landscape. Its walls shimmered like liquid metal, shifting and reforming as if alive. The design was both alien and unervingly organic, its vast spires stretching into the sky. The guards led him into the heart of the palace, down winding corridors lit by soft, pulsating lights. Eventually, they stopped before a towering set of doors, intricately carved with alien symbols that seemed to hum faintly with energy. The doors slid open soundlessly, revealing a vast chamber. At its center was the queen, seated on a throne that appeared to grow out of the floor itself. She studied him as he entered, her violet eyes unreadable. "Approach," she commanded, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. Kale hesitated but obeyed, stepping forward until he stood at the base of the throne. He kept his head high, refusing to bow despite the overwhelming aura of authority that radiated from her. "You are unlike the others," she said, her tone contemplative. "Most of your kind break under the weight of captivity. But you resist. Why?" Kale met her gaze, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. "Because I'm not a piece of property." Her lips curved into a faint smile, though it was unclear whether it was amusement or something else entirely. "You are bold. That will serve you well here." She rose from her throne, descending the steps with a grace that seemed almost inhuman. Standing before him, she towered over him by at least a foot, her presence overwhelming. "I am Zyra, ruler of the Eltherian Dominion," she said, her voice soft but commanding. "You belong to me now. But I do not take what is unwilling. Tell me, human, will you serve me willingly, or must I compel your obedience?" Kale clenched his fists. The thought of submitting to anyone, especially an alien who had purchased him like livestock, was abhorrent. But defiance would likely cost him his life. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice cautious. Her smile widened, and this time it held a hint of something more predatory. "That depends on you. Perhaps you will serve as an advisor. Perhaps a companion. Or perhaps—" She stepped closer, her gaze locking with his. "Something more intimate." Kale's breath caught, but he quickly regained his composure. "I'm not a slave." "No," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "You are not. But you are mine." Days turned into weeks as Kale adjusted to life in the palace. Zyra's intentions remained enigmatic. She granted him freedom within the palace grounds, allowing him to explore its vast halls and alien wonders. Yet, her presence was constant, her gaze following him like a shadow. At times, she questioned him about humanity, its history, its culture, its desires. Other times, she simply watched, her expression unreadable as he struggled to adapt to her world. Though he hated to admit it, he found himself drawn to her. Despite her imposing demeanor, there was a complexity to her that intrigued him. She was not the tyrant he had imagined. Her rule was one of calculated precision, her decisions guided by a mix of logic and something that almost resembled compassion. But there was always an undercurrent of tension between them, a push and pull that neither could deny. Zyra's interest in him was more than just curiosity, and he could feel the weight of her expectations pressing down on him. One night, as he stood on a balcony overlooking the shimmering city beyond the palace, she approached him. Her gown flowed like liquid starlight, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "You fascinate me, Kale," she said, her voice soft. "Your defiance. Your strength. It is refreshing." "I'm not here to entertain you," he replied, though his tone lacked the sharpness it once held. "No," she said, stepping closer until they were only inches apart. "You are here because I chose you. And you will choose me, in time." Kale turned to face her, his pulse quickening as her words hung in the air. Her presence was magnetic, her beauty alien yet undeniably captivating. But beneath her composed exterior, he sensed something more, a vulnerability she kept hidden beneath layers of regal authority. "I don't understand you," he admitted. "You bought me, yet you act as though you want my trust. If I'm just a possession to you, why pretend otherwise?" Zyra's eyes flickered with faint amusement, though her expression remained serious. "Do you think me so simple, human? Your kind often mistakes power for cruelty. My kind does not see value in breaking what we acquire. It is the will of the strong that I seek, not the servitude of the broken." Kale studied her, searching for the lie in her words, but he found none. "And what happens if I don't give you what you want?" he asked cautiously. "Then you will remain as you are," she said simply. "You are free to resist, though it will not change your circumstances." The ambiguity of her intentions unsettled him. Was she playing a game with him, or was there a deeper purpose behind her actions? Either way, he knew he had to tread carefully. Over time, Kale found himself drawn into the intricate workings of Zyra's court. It was a labyrinth of shifting alliances, subtle manipulations, and veiled threats. The alien nobles, with their myriad forms and inscrutable customs, regarded him with a mix of curiosity and disdain. Zyra, however, treated him differently. She insisted he accompany her to court functions, her hand lightly resting on his arm as they navigated the treacherous waters of diplomacy. At first, he resented her insistence, but he soon realized she was teaching him, showing him how to survive in her world. One evening, during a grand banquet, a rival noble approached them. He was a hulking, reptilian figure with scales that shimmered like polished obsidian. His voice was a low rumble, and his words were laced with barely concealed hostility. "Your new acquisition is quite the curiosity, Queen Zyra," he said, his golden eyes narrowing as he regarded Kale. "But do you not fear that such a creature might undermine your authority? Humans are known for their Unpredictability. Zyra's grip on Kale's arm tightened slightly, a silent reassurance. Unpredictability is not a weakness, Lord Trelvek, she replied smoothly. It is a strength, one that I value greatly. Perhaps you should take note. Trelvek's gaze lingered on Kale for a moment longer before he inclined his head and withdrew. As he disappeared into the crowd, Zyra leaned in, her voice low. Do not let them intimidate you, she said. They seek to test you, to find weakness. Show them none. Kale nodded, his respect for her growing despite himself. She was a master of control, wielding her authority with precision. Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that she expected him to do more than simply follow her lead. One night, Kale was summoned to Zyra's private chambers. The room was bathed in soft, golden light, its walls adorned with flowing patterns that shifted and glowed in time with her emotions. She stood by a wide window, gazing out at the city below. You've adjusted well, she said without turning to face him. But I wonder, have you found a place for yourself here, or are you still searching for a way out? Kale hesitated. He had considered escape countless times, but the palace was a fortress, and the alien world beyond was far from welcoming. I don't know if I belong here, he admitted. But I've learned enough to survive. Zyra turned to him, her expression unreadable. Survival is not enough. I did not bring you here to merely endure. I brought you here to thrive, to become something more. And what is that exactly? He asked, meeting her gaze. She stepped closer, her movements fluid and deliberate. An ally, she said. A partner. Perhaps even a king. Kale blinked, caught off guard by her words. A king, he echoed. You're joking. Her expression remained serious. I am not. My dominion is vast, but it is not without challenges. I have enemies who would see me dethroned, and I cannot trust anyone within my own court. You, however, are different. You are an outsider, untainted by their schemes. He studied her, trying to discern her motives. Why me? He asked. What makes you think I'd even consider helping you? Zyra's eyes softened, and for the first time, he saw a flicker of vulnerability in her gaze. Because I see your potential, Kale. And because I want you to choose me. Not out of obligation, but because you see the same potential in me. Her words struck a chord within him, stirring something he couldn't quite name. He still didn't trust her completely, but he couldn't deny the connection that had formed between them. What would you have me do? He asked cautiously. Zyra smiled, a glimmer of hope lighting her expression. For now, just stand by my side. The rest will come in time. Their tentative alliance was soon tested. A plot against Zyra emerged from within her court, led by Lord Trelvek and his faction. They sought to overthrow her, claiming her association with a human had weakened her rule. The rebellion erupted into open conflict, and Kale found himself thrust into the heart of the struggle. Despite his initial reluctance, he couldn't ignore the loyalty he had begun to feel toward Zyra. She had given him a chance when no one else had, and he couldn't abandon her now. In the heat of battle, Kale proved his worth. His human ingenuity and defiance turned the tide, earning him the respect of Zyra's loyalists. When the dust settled, Trelvek was defeated, and Zyra's rule was secure. As they stood together in the aftermath, Zyra placed a hand on his shoulder, her violet eyes glowing with gratitude. You have given me more than I could have hoped for, she said. Not just your strength, but your trust. Kale nodded, his voice firm. And you've given me a reason to stay. The palace was still as the night deepened, save for the faint hum of repair drones restoring the damage wrought by the rebellion. The throne room, once a place of elegance, now bore scars of the recent conflict. Cracked walls, shattered ornaments, and scorched floors where energy blasts had struck. Kale stood near the base of the throne, his body bruised and weary from the battle. Zyra reclined on the throne itself, her regal composure undiminished despite the chaos they had endured. Her shimmering silver skin pulsed faintly with exhaustion, though her eyes held their usual intensity. You've earned more than a place here, she said softly, her voice carrying a warmth Kale hadn't heard before. You've earned my trust, and my gratitude. Kale rubbed the back of his neck, uncomfortable with the praise. I didn't do it for thanks, he replied. I did it because, Well, I couldn't just stand by and let them take you down. A small smile touched her lips, a rare softness breaking through her usual stoicism. And why is that, Kale? He hesitated, the words catching in his throat. The connection between them had grown undeniable, but voicing it felt like crossing a line he couldn't retreat from. Still, the quiet intensity of her gaze compelled him to answer. Because I care about you, he admitted. More than I want to admit. Zyra's smile widened, her regal mask giving way to something more genuine. You surprise me at every turn, human. Before he could respond, she rose from the throne and stepped toward him, her silver gown flowing like liquid light. She stopped just before him, her height forcing him to tilt his head to meet her gaze. Slowly, she extended her hand, her long fingers brushing against his cheek. You are unlike anyone I have ever known, she said. Your strength, your defiance, your compassion, they make you extraordinary. And I find that I do not wish to rule alone anymore. Kale's breath hitched as her words sank in. You're serious? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I am, she replied, her tone leaving no room for doubt. But the question remains. Will you stand beside me, not as a servant, but as an equal? The announcement of Kale's ascension sent shockwaves through the Eltherian dominion. An outsider, a human, was to rule alongside their queen? Many questioned her decision, but Zyra's authority was absolute, and her loyalists rallied behind her. In the weeks that followed, Kale found himself thrust into a role he never imagined. Zyra guided him patiently, teaching him the intricacies of their governance, the nuances of alien diplomacy, and the weight of leadership. He struggled at first, but with her support, he began to thrive. Their relationship deepened with every passing day. The walls Kale had built around himself slowly crumbled as he allowed himself to trust Zyra fully. And she, in turn, let him see the vulnerabilities she hid from the rest of the galaxy, the fears and hopes that drove her. One evening, as they stood on the palace balcony overlooking the city, Zyra turned to him, her eyes glowing softly in the dim light. Do you regret staying? She asked. Kale shook his head, a genuine smile spreading across his face. No, he said. For the first time in years, I feel like I belong somewhere. Like I have a purpose. Zyra reached for his hand, intertwining her long fingers with his. You have given me more than purpose, Kale. You have given me hope. The day of their formal union dawned bright and clear, the sky above Zephyr Prime shimmering with auroras. The coronation ceremony was unlike anything Kale had ever experienced. Thousands of Eltherian citizens gathered in the central plaza, their voices rising in a harmonious chorus that reverberated through the city. Zyra stood beside him on a raised platform, her gown gleaming with an iridescent brilliance that rivaled the stars. Kale wore a ceremonial robe crafted by the palace artisans, its design a blend of human and Eltherian elements, a symbol of the union they represented. As the ceremony reached its peak, Zyra raised a hand, silencing the crowd with her commanding presence. Today, we mark the beginning of a new era, she declared, her voice resonating with power. An era of unity, where strength is born from diversity. Kale is no longer an outsider. He is one of us. Together, we shall lead this dominion into a future of prosperity and peace. The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices blending into a harmonious roar. Kale looked at Zyra, his chest swelling with a mix of pride and gratitude. She turned to him, her eyes alight with affection. Ready to rule a galaxy? She asked, her lips curving into a playful smile. He laughed, the sound light and unguarded. With you, always. In the years that followed, Kale and Zyra's partnership became legendary. Together, they reformed the Eltherian dominion, fostering alliances with neighboring civilizations and dismantling the old systems of oppression that had once defined their empire. Their love grew stronger with each challenge they faced, a bond that transcended species and culture. Kale became a symbol of humanity's resilience, while Zyra's wisdom and compassion inspired loyalty across the galaxy. And as they stood together on the balcony of their palace, watching the stars blaze across the heavens, they knew that their story, one of defiance, hope, and love, had only just begun.